Hello, my lovelies. So I feel like this is a long time coming, but it was actually inspired by somebody that's not a patron. It was actually inspired by a YouTube subscriber that asked me to go into sanguine vampirism. And they specifically said, quote unquote, ethical. Now, that's up to debate. I'm not going to go into what is ethical and what's not. I'm simply going to talk about sanguine vampirism and different ways that you can do it and how to benefit off of it if it's something that you're interested in, okay? Now, I want to say for the record that I am not what I would consider a sanguine vampire. Not that I'm opposed to it. I'm certainly open to it. But it's the type of thing where I'm very selective. If I were to vampire off of somebody's actual blood, it would have to be somebody that I have a very close relationship with. They would have to be screened for diseases, STDs, things of that nature. And it would have to be a very ritualized and very spiritual type connection, dynamic, things of that nature. So, am I open to it? Yes. Do I find it to be necessary for myself? No. To me, it would be more of a kink or a taboo breaking ceremony than it would be something I need. I definitely classify myself as an energy vampire and succubus first and foremost. So, yes, I can feed off the energy of blood when I see it. I can literally tap in and feed off of it. But I'm absolutely not somebody that has drinking the blood of others at this point in time. So I feel like I need to just put that out there. So this is not coming from personal experience, and I feel like that's important to note. This is coming from me understanding how sanguine vampirism operates and understanding how a lot of other sanguine vampires, a lot of other vampires do it, is what I should say, okay? So I just feel like that's important to put out there. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, I myself am open to it, but I just feel like it's important to note when something comes from a space of personal experience and when it doesn't, because that can be a big difference for people, understandably so. So just wanted to put that out there. Now, I'm going to be releasing this in every tier on Patreon before I release it premiering on YouTube. And it's going to be in its raw voice clip form on Patreon, okay? I'll be creating a video in its edited form for YouTube, which will also contain less information. So here we go. Let's jump in. Now, sanguine means blood, literally. And what a blood-drinking vampire is a vampire that derives most or at least their primary source of energy from drinking blood. Now, quite often, these particular types of vampires are anemic or iron deficient, or they have some other deficiency in their DNA that they would require to drink blood. It doesn't have to be the case. They can do it as a lifestyle. They can do it because they like to get the energy from the blood or they enjoy drinking blood. But a lot of times what gets people started in it is that they feel the need. They feel the draw. It's something that comes from within. It's something that comes from a deficit or a desire or a craving. Now, again, you don't have to have any kind of nutritional deficiency to be a sanguine vampire. It does not have to point to any kind of quote-unquote weakness. Just like any form of vampirism doesn't have to point to a quote-unquote weakness, okay? The most powerful people that run this fucking universe are vampires, as I've talked about in other posts and I've talked about on my YouTube channel. So it does not denote weakness. I just want to put that out there. But it can point to somebody that has like a mineral deficiency or vitamin deficiency that sort of kickstarts them into vampirism, okay? Now, the human body, and, again, I'm not speaking of, when I talk about vampires, I don't mean that there are literally beings, like physical humans out there that are vampires the way the mythological vampire is talked about. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just not something that I have found to be the case, okay? I have found that in the majority of cases, vampirism has to do with energy vampirism, and that the whole idea of the Walking Dead is really symbolic of the crossing of the abyss of the Qliphoth into master vampirism and collapsing your soul into a black hole if you're not already that way to begin with, okay? So that is what I take to mean the Walking Dead or the Risen Dead, okay? And the abilities that come with vampirism, you know, do tend to make somebody very magnetic, very irresistible, have certain occultic abilities, astral projection, things of that nature. So this does come with that, all right? So I want to put that out there. So the human body, because we are, whether we're vampires or not, we're still humans in these avatars. The human body cannot withstand large amounts of blood for the most part. And it's not necessary. So sanguine vampirism does not mean that you have to drink a ton of blood. Even having a few drops can be enough for most sanguine vampires, from what I have researched and what I've heard from, you know, other accounts of actual sanguine vampires. Now, some of them will feed daily, some of them will feed weekly, some of them will feed monthly, some of them will feed from a variety of voluntary partners. Some have one. Some are, you know, some sanguine vampires will vampire off each other and both classify themselves as sanguine vampires. So that's also very common. Or maybe one would be an energy vampire and one would be a sanguine vampire. Now, when we get into the topic of what most people consider ethical vampirism, quote unquote, they're talking about people feeding off the blood of a host where it's consensual. I don't know of anyone that's going around and just biting people or, you know, slicing people's veins open and drinking their blood non-consensually. So I really don't feel like that's even a thing, you know. For the most part, if it is, it's definitely not something that I've come across. So I don't think it's really an issue. But again, everybody's idea of what their concept of morality and right or wrong is going to differ because everyone has their own morality feels. It's really neither here nor there. But in a general sense, it's going to be consensual. And it's usually between somebody that has a connection or relationship with that particular host. And the host, like I already mentioned, might also be a vampire as well. So sanguine vampires also are more likely to adopt the more mythological vampire culture. They're more to get into, I hesitate to use the word cosplay side of it. You might see them wearing, you know, you might see them not going out in the sun, wanting pale skin, wearing certain contacts, getting fangs made, even to the point where they have actual caps, like permanent caps as fangs, things of that nature. Now, you can do that as an energy vampire. It's not, you know, necessary because, you know, as far as in the literal sense, because energy vampires don't require physical fangs to take in energy, but a sanguine vampire might actually use those to some degree to bloodlet, although it's more likely to be the case with a sterilized needle or a special cutting tool, because a lot of times, from what I understand, again, not speaking from personal experience, these particular caps or these particular permanent teeth, although you're not gonna break them off or anything like that, they're still technically not supposed to be for actual biting or drawing of blood, but technically they could be used for that because they are permanent. So they do add sharp points to the canines or wherever else they're placed. But most of the time when a sanguine vampire feeds, they're doing it with an actual tool. I don't know how many of you guys have seen American Horror Story Hotel. That is a great example of a sanguine vampire, except she drinks a lot more blood and she is immortal in that, so they do mix some of the mythology, but if you notice, she doesn't have any teeth. Another interesting one is one of the more recent ones, not the one from this season, but I think it was a season before, where they showed people taking a pill that made them crave human blood and also increase their creativity, which also has to do with the symbolism of vampirism as well, dealing with the Qliphoth. I'm not going to get into that in this particular case, but they actually file their teeth down and then get caps to make their teeth look like they did before. So it's in reverse. So you can do that as well if you wanted to, I suppose. But in both of these cases, these vampires crave large amounts of blood, and in one case they're immortal. So again, I don't take it to be literally that vampires, sanguine vampires, or any kind of vampires are literally immortal, but I will say that vampirism can extend your life, and it can make you look younger and seem younger and feel younger energetically longer, because you're taking in energy, you're not putting energy out. You're just simply taking it in. So that is a thing. Most people that are vampires tend to look younger than their age. I've been told that I look younger than my age, and a lot of vampires, you know, especially energy vampires, that is the case. So I digress. If you're wanting to know if any of the mythologies are true against sanguine vampires, absolutely not. You know, any vampire, we're not bothered by crosses. In fact, the cross is actually a sign of the crossroads. It's a sign of the sun. It can either be the setting sun, or it can be the rising sun, or it can be crossroads, or the four elements. It's a very occultic symbol. It can also symbolize death or crossing, you know, death. So it's not anything that vampires are afraid of. Same thing with garlic. I eat plenty of garlic. Silver, also not a thing. It doesn't bother us. You know, none of these things. It's all bullshit. I will say that the only thing that is pretty much true is the symbolic application of them crossing the abyss. Okay, so there's symbolic death and resurrection. And also, you can extend your life, but you're not going to be immortal. Okay, at least I don't know of anyone who is. But yeah, sanguine vampires, you know, just to recap, essentially drink blood either to sustain themselves as their primary means of energy. I don't know anyone that's a sanguine vampire that all they do is feed off of blood. And they still have human bodies, so I don't know of anyone. If you guys do, or if you've heard of anything and you want to drop it or share it in the comment section below, I'd love to hear. But as far as I know, I've never heard of that. Again, still in human bodies. So yeah, that's what I have for you guys. I hope that explains about sanguine vampirism. Check out my website, thetantricdragonist.com, to book a private Akashic reading or any other reading. Also, Akashic portraits, consultations, shamanic journeys, starseed charts, primordial dragon fire healing, and much more. You can also subscribe to Patreon to learn how to do a lot of this yourself. There are various templates I've designed. Activate Diamond Consciousness, Activate the Black Flame, Journey the Underworld, Tantric Healing and BDSM, Astral Projection and Power, Shields, Cloaks, Wards, Learning Light Language, Exclusive and Premier Readings, Soul Fragment Retrieval, Advanced Ancestral Work, Creating Your Own Shamanic Sanctuary, and much more. Thanks for your support, and stay tuned for future videos.